Wait once. You have a box up. Can someone give me co-host, please?
Yeah, that's John.
All right, never mind. I'll say it on the thread.
Good morning, family. Good morning, Adam, Marie. Who's that iPhone? Jennifer, Phoenix.
Peace and blessings, family. Good morning. Good morning. I'm Miss Dionne.
That sounds like no, that was Teresa. That was Teresa.
Yes, ma'am. Good morning.
Okay. Trying to recognize these voices.
Good morning, Dionne. Good morning, everybody. How's everyone doing today?
Awesome. I do not wake up awesome every morning, but I do wake up awesome on my Wake Up Everybody mornings.
I heard that.
Thanks, Adam.
You're welcome.
Peace and blessings, Dionne.
Peace and bless. That's our Bimbola. I hear you.
Yes,
You're
it is.
iPhone. Okay. Peace, Zakia, Jennifer, sister. I hope everyone's having a blessed morning. For those of you that have not participated with me, I am Dionne. I call myself the Chief Joy Connector, and I really do hope you've got pen and paper with you today.
Recording.
Wake up, everybody. It's time to get up. Wake up, everybody. It's time to get up. Stay woke. Stay woke. Stay woke. It's time to get up. Stay woke. Stay woke. Stay woke, it's time to get up. We're healing, we're dealing, we're growing. Together, together, releasing. We're teaching, we're moving. Together, together, we're learning, discerning, we're striving. Together, together, we're leading, connecting, transforming. Together, together.
Good morning, everyone. I'm really excited to be here with you today. My name is Dionne Monsanto. I call myself the Chief Joy Connector, and my business is Joyous Ocean. Totally different today, since September is actually Suicide Prevention Month, and I've been doing these various speaking things for workplaces and teaching people about the warning signs for suicide. It's so often when someone attempts suicide or dies by suicide, we are shocked, and you'll hear people constantly say that they didn't know, they didn't see it, they weren't aware. So it just seemed like I needed to have this conversation with us as family, because I do feel like Wake Up Everybody is a family community. What is different from how I normally do this is that when we're speaking here and Wake Up Everybody, it is a conversation. All of us are in conversation with this, but I am going to share cover different topics, but I am going to ask you to hold your questions, because I'm going to be looking at notes and I want to make sure I don't miss anything. So if you have questions, I'm going to ask you to either put them in the chat. I will also ask you to hold on to them. And then I'm going to have a poll to make sure that you've glean something from all the information I'm sharing and you can respond to. So that's the container for today. That's a little bit different from how I normally engage with all of you. So I want to put that out there because when you're thinking about, saving lives, oh, great, yay. We're on Facebook now. Hey, Facebook, I'm so glad you made it in. Sorry, everybody on Zoom. I wanted to welcome the Facebook family. So for those of you on Facebook, my name is Dionne, and I am going to be talking to you today about the warning signs. So if we're concerned about someone having a mental health challenge or being stressed that they might be suicidal, we want to learn what the warning signs are so we can save lives. And I picked this topic because September is Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. So I am also, you know me as the Joy Connector, but I'm actually on the board with the local chapter for New York City, the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, the New York City chapter. I am the walk co-chair for the Bronx. We have walks generally in all 5 boroughs, and a volunteer. I've been volunteering with them since 2009. Now, I also want to give clearing and awareness that suicide can be a sensitive topic to discuss, but having a conversation about suicide is really critical to preventing suicide. So I'm really grateful that each and every one of you have joined us today, whether you're in Zoom or on Facebook. And I would say if you are on Facebook, I welcome you to join us in Zoom. If at any point in today's presentation, you feel the need to step out or walk away, I totally understand that. But overall, I really hope that you learn a bit more about suicide prevention from my chat today, and you become more comfortable talking about this important issue. Something to put into space right away is that suicide is actually a health issue, and it's a complex health issue. And despite the complexity of it, I would like to say it's preventable. Just like there are warning signs and risk factors for other health crises like cardiac arrest, we can learn the warning signs and risk factors that can help us to prevent people from dying by suicide. As with other health crises and issues, prevention can start early, far in advance of the problem, or prevention can occur closer to the time of the crisis. Time can be a critical life-saving measure. Typically, a life can be saved if you allow time for the person's suicide risk to subside or to get through that period of intense distress and to get mental health help. To prevent suicide, we need to identify people who may be suicidal as well as take an active role in connecting them to help before they take any sort of action to end their life. So I'm going to break my talk into a few different areas, and I'll have an audience check or a poll for you to give an answer to each of these areas: the scope of the problem, research, prevention, and then the last part, which I always feel is the most important, what we can do. The purpose is to provide our community with a general overview about suicide, who it affects, and what can be done to prevent it. My talk is going to cover some stats, and they're somewhat jarring to give you an idea of the scope of the problem of suicide. And we'll review some of the research findings, risk and protective factors that relate to suicide, and then we'll talk about what works and what you can do to prevent. So oddly enough, I think we know this, but it's important to bring it into the space that how we talk about suicide matters. So I'm going to discuss some terminology so we can model good behavior. Something I'm sure I think most of us have heard the term committed suicide, but we actually want to avoid, there are language do's and language don'ts. So if we establish a baseline on shared language on this topic, we actually want to avoid using the phrase committed suicide because it has a negative connotation. And we actually encourage phrases like died by suicide or ended their life or killed themselves. And actually, a historical point that I learned when I started doing these talks was that the term committed came from the fact that it used to be a crime. And in certain countries, some of you know that I travel back and forth to Kenya, it is still illegal. So if someone attempts suicide, instead of getting mental health treatment, they are actually arrested. So think of it in terms of increasing awareness, because if someone had a heart attack, you wouldn't say they committed cardiac arrest. You know, it's something that happened, right? So when talking about suicide or suicide attempts, we also avoid referring to suicide attempts as failed or successful. Not only is it unnecessary, but they also imply judgment. We encourage the use of phrases like a suicide attempt, death by suicide, and just, I spend a lot of time educating the public about suicide and it being critical for encouraging help seeking, raising awareness for vulnerable populations. And we're in a really sensitive, vulnerable time in this global pandemic, and very thankful I am, and as sure you all are, for the WU community. So we want to change, I personally want to change how society understands mental health and suicide, because when we open up and when we connect and when we talk, we can actually save lives. So this one is not a knowledge check that I've given out, but if someone says, so as opposed to saying committed suicide, we should say died by suicide. So I'll put that out there and I'll ask you about that again later. In covering the scope of the problem, I'm going to give you some large numbers. And this one always shocked me when I saw it on a screen. Suicide is a global problem. And according to the World Health Organization, each year, over 800,000 people actually die by suicide worldwide. And even though that is the most accurate data we have, as I mentioned earlier, it's illegal in some places. So we know that the data is actually underrepresented, and numbers are probably actually higher. And that actually means mathematically that even while I've been talking to you for these few minutes here, someone actually dies by suicide every 40 seconds or so. In the United States, suicide is actually the 10th leading cause of death. The rates are recorded by the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, and the numbers that I'm about to share are from 2019, pre-pandemic, but that's the most recent data that's available. So over 47,511 people died by suicide in 2019, just in the United States. And that makes suicide the 10th leading cause of death. And it actually takes more lives in the United States than homicide, war, and natural disasters combined. Now, take a deep breath, because while those numbers are jarring, one of the many reasons it's important to have this conversation, like any other cause of death, because the more we talk about it, the less stigmatized the idea becomes, and that we all face struggles and we all need support, and we can get that support. And clearly, suicide impacts individuals and communities. And it's estimated that the majority, all of us, the majority of people in America will experience a suicide loss over the course of time. So just to make sure you're there with me, since I'm not monitoring the chat, I'm going to see if we can pull up a poll now to ask you a first question about what I've taught so far.
So, Dionne, there's
Yes.
a challenge with Zoom and the polling.
Okay.
We know how to pivot well in this space.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's an easy one. So I'm just going to ask a question, and I will ask, I'm looking at the chat now. So I'm going to ask each of you to type into the chat the answer to this question. In the United States, suicide is what number in terms of the cause of death? Second, fifth, third, 10th. Okay, I see answers popping in already. I saw the first one. So somebody else type in, what number is it? Yes, yes. Thank you. The answers I see so far, and hopefully you're dropping those on Facebook as well. Suicide is the 10th leading cause of death in the United States. Good job. And since I'm monitoring the chat, if someone says to you, and this is a choice. So if you lost someone to suicide, and I hope you never do, would you say my cousin Kevin committed suicide, or would you say my cousin Kevin died by suicide? And you can type that in the chat and on Facebook. Yes. Thank you, Adam. I see those popping up. Yes, died by suicide. Yeah, people don't commit cancer, they die by cancer. They don't commit suicide, they die by suicide. And now you even know the common language of where that came from. Thank you all for participating, and thank you for letting me know that, Shani. I appreciate you. So the other thing I want to talk about, since we've covered the scope of the problem, since I've been volunteering with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention since 2009, they are the leading researcher in this area. So the main question, of course, that people always ask, and I receive this question often, why do people take their own lives? And through research, we've learned that there is no one single cause for suicide. It most often occurs when several stressors converge, health issues, stressors, and they create a feeling of hopelessness and despair. And research has also shown that the large majority of people who die by suicide do have a mental health condition contributing to their death, whether it was being treated or not, whether it was diagnosed or not, or even if it was being adequately treated. In general, research has also said that 1 in 4 people will experience a mental health condition, but even the mental health condition doesn't tell the whole story. And having a mental health condition absolutely does not mean that you'll go on to die by suicide. Majority do not go on to die by suicide of people that have mental health conditions. Research has also taught us that there are physical differences to brains. So the brains of people who die by suicide often differ from those who die from other causes. The brain is different in both structure and function. Something that research has also shown that this also surprised me, that most people who are suicidal are actually ambivalent about taking their life. We've learned that from them, so a term that we'll use is lived experience, from having a conversation with someone that attempted suicide, that there's a critical point, a crisis point that has reached. And that crisis point is so intense and the pain has become so unbearable that they want to escape the pain. So for a suicidal person, when the pain becomes so unbearable, whether it's emotional pain or physical pain, or sometimes both, a crisis point has been reached and they want to end the pain. And in that point of limited thinking, they'll feel as though the only way to end the pain is to end their life. Just for a moment, making sure you're there with me. This is a simple yes or no answer, but I want you to think about the most painful experience you've had in your life, whatever that might have been. And at that point in time of extreme pain, mental, physical, or emotional, if someone were to ask you for clear, concise directions on how to get to your home, could you give someone directions while you were in pain? Yes or no?
I'll jump in here too, as people are dropping in the verbal. I want to say 2 things.
Yes.
I think that I could.
Okay.
I've trained myself to keep pressing forward, pushing through. And what came up for me too, just as a clinician, is that we'll take physical pain more seriously than emotional pain. And I felt both in my life. Like I'm thinking about like tooth pain, just feeling like I wanted to jump off the side of a building or tie a string to my tooth and let a pickup truck drag me down, drag it out. And then also I felt extreme emotional pain, and it's usually in my gut. And I always describe it, it feels like a bowling ball. That's not pliant at all, as hard as AF. And it feels unmovable and unbearable when I'm in that space of emotional, I'm going to say turmoil, or it feels that way. But we're taught not to take that as seriously. And it's like, it's not that deep, you know. So I just wanted to say that out loud in the space.
I appreciate you, and I agree. And I love seeing the majority of the answers in the chat said no. And there were a couple of yeses like yours. And if you are training for a certain level of pain and duress in your life, you might be able to. I would dare say for the most, I go into a certain level of shock with pain, even though I have a fairly high pain tolerance, and the answer for me is also no. So in talking about who's at risk, there are 3 areas in terms of risk factors. We're looking at them as characteristics and conditions that could increase the risk that somebody might take their life. So there are health risks, historical risks, and environmental risks. So just like someone who's at the risk for heart disease because of high blood pressure or a history of heart disease in the family, there are actually some people that are higher risk for suicide than others. And the main risk factors being grouped into those same categories: health, historical, and environmental. And these risk factors can actually converge at certain points in people's life. So health factors, you're probably aware of a number of these that I'll mention: depression, bipolar disorder, anxiety disorders, eating disorders, personality disorders, psychosis, PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and substance use disorders. So those are all various sorts of health factors. And there's some others such as serious or chronic health conditions, chronic pain, or serious head injuries. Now, in the same way, when you go to a doctor, they will ask you who in your family has cancer, what type of cancer, and all of that, because they're looking at the health factors for your physical health. But you don't generally have the same sort of questions in regards to our mental health. And if your family is anything like my family, until things started occurring, I was not aware that there was a history of mental health challenges in my family and diagnosis, as well as in my ex-husband's family. So it comes up as something, with our children. So it's really important to look at what the historical factor, and perhaps see people have a historical factor could be a family history of suicide, a family history of mental health conditions, or childhood abuse, or previous suicide attempts, or even loss, being exposed to loss. An environmental factor could be something like access to lethal means. There's a similar presentation that I'll do for people that have license to carry firearms, and that's someone that is exposed and they have access to lethal means, or exposure. Sometimes exposure could be contagion to graphic or sensationalized accounts of suicide, especially in the media. And if someone has the other risk factors, so combined, looking at health, historical, or environmental, along with prolonged stress like harassment or bullying, relationship problems, legal problems, unemployment, a global pandemic, stressful life events, they often occur within our lifespan, but putting them all together, because so often when something happens, we know, I'll give a better example. So if I'm going to pull a name out of a hat, Jose dies by suicide, and you, as a friend of Jose, know that he was going through a divorce. So that difficult, ugly divorce, people will be like, oh, Jose took his life because of the divorce. And that is what we could see. But the thing that, with the public perception, we point to that one thing as being the reason or the cause. But the thing that we might not know is a genetic risk. We didn't know that Jose was dealing with depression and anxiety disorder, that he had prolonged stress at work, and that he was drinking more than usual. So that, combined with what we could see, that environmental factor could be, all of those things coming together. The life event alone of going through a really ugly divorce is not generally thought to be the actual cause. It's all of the things coming together: the historical, the health, and the environmental. So with the importance of research, when we're looking to the future, most of us know someone that has had autism. When I was a child, there weren't biomarkers in research to understand if someone might be autistic, and now there are. And now there's psychotherapies and interventions, and there's even medication. Whether you choose to do medication or not, it's really important to find a way to deal with your mental health. And research has shown, whether it's talk therapy or medication or a combination of, finding a way to deal with it is great. I'm going to pause, let you take a breath, and ask another question. And I'm going to go take a peek at the chat so I can see your answers. So when we're talking about the different areas, health, historical, and environmental, if someone has access to lethal means, is that a health factor, a historical factor, or an environmental factor? Oh, okay, the poll is back. All right. Yes, thank you, Adam. And I think you might be able to click on it on your screen. Assuming you're on Zoom. Oh, nice. I see a bunch of things in the chat, and there's some things from Facebook. All right, did everybody participate in the poll? I saw the answers in the chat were correct.
No, 7 out of 20 people participated in the poll. So if everyone can switch from chat to poll, the poll is on your screen.
Okay.
Pop-up box on your screen. All right, at 8 of 20. Yeah, maybe you can move on. The next question, there will be other questions. Be sure to look on the poll to give your answer.
Okay. Well, from what I saw, you got the idea that access to lethal means is definitely an environmental factor. And thank you for that. And thank you for pivoting again. So prevention. Oh yeah, there it is. Thank you for bringing the results up. Oh yeah, some said health. Yeah, access to lethal mean is not a health factor. A health factor would be a prolonged, health factor would be the historical is in the family. A health factor could be your mental health diagnosis, such as having depression, bipolar disorder, or any sort of actual diagnosis that comes in the area of mental health. But the other section that's really important I want to cover is prevention, because we want to learn what are the protective factors. Like this, I would consider WOO, the Wake Up Everybody community, as a protective factor. If you're being proactive about mental health and you can make an effort to get healthier, you protect yourself. Feeling connected to family and community support can protect against suicide. When someone is struggling with depression, anxiety, psychosis, or substance use disorder, those are, family and connection to community support are protective factors that can help. Having problem-solving skills, cultural and religious beliefs that encourage connecting to help-seeking methods, and discouraging suicidal behaviors, it can also create a strong sense of purpose, can also be a protective factor. Mental health care, period, point blank, is an important ingredient for preventing suicide. In the same way, when Shawnee spoke up earlier, most of us will go for a checkup from the neck down. Terry Williams has a book, and something she always says, and I'm blanking on the name of the book now, but Terry Williams says, get your checkup from the neck up. And I always remembered that from her. So that whatever we do for our mental health, our physical health, when you're getting an annual checkup, there's generally, we've been advocating for your primary care physician and for women for GYN to have a list of questions to see how you're doing mentally, to make sure there's some gauge and there's some baseline on where you are. I engage in this conversation, and I hope all of you are here because we're trying to create a culture where everybody knows that it's important to be smart about your mental health as well as to your physical health. And that's really critical in suicide prevention, is getting people connected to mental health treatment and support. And that's a big challenge, not only globally, domestically, but within our respective communities, and especially communities of color right now. And we've done various town halls within the Black and Latin community, Asian community, to look at what are different triggers and factors about stigma and not having conversations, and it being a stigma to go and get mental health support and treatment. So we're trying to engage, I'm trying to engage in this conversation. And again, thank you for being here on Zoom and Facebook, so we can create a culture that we know everybody needs to be smart about mental health. Self-care strategies, some of my favorite: exercise, sleep, healthy diet, stress management. So exercise can be walking, dancing, yoga. There's various things, but that's a prevention strategy. It's a self-care strategy that can strengthen your mental health. There's also support with friends and family. AFSP does provide, and I'll give links later, support for loss survivors and people with lived experience. If someone has lost someone to suicide, they're called a suicide bereaved or a suicide loss survivor. And in terms of prevention, since we know about the self-care strategies, the most important thing we can do is put distance between a suicidal person and their access to means for the way of ending their life. There was actually a news article about this, I want to say about 3 years ago in the Times, that the study said, it said 10 minutes, and then there's a disparity, whether 10 or 15 minutes. So research had shown that just by temporarily reducing a person's access to lethal means, we give that individual in a crisis time for that intense suicidal risk to diminish, and time for someone to intervene with mental health support and resources. So limiting access means you can prevent a suicide. And it's actually a myth that if someone is not able to access their chosen method to attempt suicide, even temporarily, that they'll go and try another method. You will generally save that person's life. And from conversations with people with lived experience, people that have attempted suicide, they'll find they're so thankful after they have survived to look at how they can now always create distance and notice when it comes up, and work with mental health providers as well as family and friends to talk about different ways to see these things. Limiting access to means is also putting barriers on bridges. I live by the George Washington Bridge, and those are barriers. And there are studies that show that putting those barriers up on bridges had lowered the deaths by suicide in an entire region. Having carbon monoxide sensors in cars, blister packaging for medication, and securing firearms. All of those things. And firearm safety, I don't have a license, I'm not familiar, but firearm safety is critical in reducing rates by suicide, because in the United States, about half, roughly half of all suicides are completed using a firearm. So in gun safety education, we always want to come back to making sure there's a suicide prevention check. So going to give you another question here, another audience knowledge check. So there'll be a poll. So you're going to click a button on the screen. And so the next question is about your mental health. Oh, I see Jacqueline asked about pets. Pets are definitely great support. So you should be seeing a question come up about mental health care. Should I ask?
Yeah, excuse me, I just failed to launch. As I thought it was out there.
I couldn't hear you, Kenyofu. Can you say that again? Oh, there we go. So which of, it should be up on your screen, and you can click true or false. And once you click your answer, you have to submit it. I love that Kenyofu can do these polls on suicide, so you can participate. I will say it out loud for those of you on Facebook, because you can see it on your screen, but you'll have to type it in there. So the true or false question was, mental health care is a protective factor for suicide risk. And is that true or false?
We're halfway done.
Awesome.
11 out of 19. Let's go, people. 8 of you have a poll on your screen. Maybe you're not present to the computer. That might be what's going on there.
And I don't know how the polls come up on the phones either, since I normally join from my laptop. And I want to bring into the space, because I said it earlier on before I started, that having a conversation about suicide prevention and suicide attempts and all of these different ways can bring up a lot of emotions. So please take a deep breath. Please drink water. If you're feeling uncomfortable, share it. There are a number of coaches here that will support you. And I'm going to give you some numbers as well in terms of ways to get support in the community, like numbers to call. Go ahead.
Before you do that, Dionne, 13 out of 20 filled it out. Teresa did send the chat message that she has it on her phone. So I think the rest of people are just not present to the poll.
Okay. All right. And I
see
see answers coming in from Facebook too, that it's true.
Okay, I'm going to end it now. Okay, we went up to 14. I'm going to end it now and you'll see the results.
Thank you, my love.
Sure.
All right, 100%. Yay. The polls are really a fun way to make sure you guys are listening and learning. Not that I had any doubt with this particular community that you were present to this. So thank you for that. But all I was saying before is, if anything is coming up in your physical body, take a breath, breathe into it. If you have lived experience or you have endured a loss, if you're suicide bereaved, emotions come up. And just being fully transparent with me, some of you know my story already. I will mention it a bit more at the end, because we're now at the part where we're going to talk about what you can do. But I was very present with the emotions of how I was feeling around having this presentation, even though I do this constantly, and the emotions that were coming up for me, and accepting them and allowing them and being transparent about that. And I have a handkerchief right next to me, so in case tears came, I was going to be fully present and open to that with my family, with each of you here. So please take a deep breath, because now we're at the point we're going to talk about what you can do, what I can do. We've reviewed key suicide prevention efforts, and this is the important part of the conversation. Something that we do constantly in Wake Up Everybody and hope of all of us in our lives. It's just important that we know having a conversation, a caring, supportive conversation with someone that you might be worried about, can allow them to share what they're experiencing. And a conversation is not only a way to show that you care, it allows you to gain more information about the person's level of distress. I'm old enough to remember the TV commercials, you know, parent, the anti-drug. So sitting down and having dinner with your children would prevent your children from going on drugs. It's a simple concept, but having a conversation, talking to someone can save a life. Now, I also want to talk to you about what I said in terms of the topic, the warning signs. And providing support, you want to watch for warning signs, reach out to someone, and seek help. So while many of the suicide risk factors that we talked about can endure over a long period of time, warning signs can be observable and that signal that suicide risk is near. And sometimes they're subtle. And it's important to pay attention to both of the risk factors that we've discussed earlier and the warning signs that we're going to talk about now. If you see warning signs, reach out to the individuals in your life that you're concerned about, and reach out to others if you're struggling. Seek mental health services if you're depressed, if your anxiety regularly interferes with your daily life, if you're finding it hard to function, and encourage others to do the same. Have a conversation about that. What I will tell you is that suicide warning signs are typically displayed in 3 different areas: talk, behavior, and mood. I would dare say that if somebody, because sometimes we can be a jokey community, right? People in general, when people are uncomfortable about something, they'll make a joke that may seem inappropriate. So many people who are suicidal talk about ending their lives. They can do it directly or indirectly. They might say it outright or they might joke about it, but you should take it seriously. Some people will say things like they have no reason to live, they feel trapped, they feel like they're a burden to others. Or they might talk about feeling overwhelmed or being in unbearable pain. Behavior, and some of these, I am clearly fully aware that we're living in a global pandemic, but increased use of alcohol and drugs, isolating from family and friends, issues with sleep, acting recklessly, withdrawing from activities, isolating from family and friends. Looking for ways to actually end their life, giving away possessions. That is definitely a challenge, because if somebody gives you something, you as a receiver will be like, this is awesome. You know, they're giving me something. But if, again, making up an example, if someone is a war veteran and they're giving you their Purple Heart, which is a really treasured possession, that might cause you to ask or engage, like, this is really important to you and you're giving this to me, you know, what's going on? And if there are other things going on in their life, they're giving you something that's nice, but what else about their mood? What have they been talking about? It's talk, mood, and behavior. And when you're looking at mood, people at risk for suicide can display, again, sometimes subtly, any of the following moods: depression, apathy, rage, humiliation, impulsivity, moods that you might expect from someone who's feeling desperate, you know, and we all, myself included, we all have ups and downs in our mood. But if you notice a change that seems uncharacteristic or concerning, it's important to speak to the person about what you are noticing. There's one particular slide that I am going to ask to come up because I really feel as though it makes such a big difference. That you, whether you're here with me on Zoom or if you're there on Facebook, you've got to trust your gut. We've all lived long enough and we've been in various situations that you've got out of it. And this one I just love because it says a lot of things to me. That's the slide. Thank you so much. Trust your gut and assume that you're the only person that's going to reach out to them. Because sometimes people, I'm going to look at the chat in just a moment. I saw something come up, or I might ask somebody to support that, because you're all seeing the same things, but you're picking up on something. So you trust your gut, whether you feel it in your actual gut, in your heart, in your throat, trust that feeling. Thank you for bringing that slide up, Kinyofu. So let me see. The medal reminds me of some friends that they lost. So it's more of a trigger for them. Okay. Thank you. I'm reading what Phoenix had typed in the chat. The thing about trust, go ahead.
Dionne, this would be a great time to pause and ask the audience if there's something someone wants to share. So you're reading from the chat, but someone actually might want to verbalize. Okay,
if there's somebody that wants to share their experience, because there's a couple of things I want to cover. So if you can share briefly before people tap out at 8, I would welcome that.
All right. Do you see anything, Shawnee?
Yeah, I actually see Zakia acknowledging an attempt when she was 20 years old. And I was saying in the chat, just for transparency to the leadership, the admin team that I was feeling the energy in my body in 3 places. So I know that there's something going on with folks in the community around this topic, because I'm carrying your energy in my body. Nothing wrong with it. Like, this is what we do here.
It is.
Yeah, so I just want to make sure that y'all know that there's nothing wrong. I just want to acknowledge it. So if there's someone that's willing to come on to say that you're having a physical reaction to the conversation because of your own attempt, and I want to make sure I'm using the right language, Dionne.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, your lived experience or
That's
a
your lived
past
experience.
attempt.
Yes, or being connected to someone who died by suicide. Like, please do, like, this is the space to share that and express and release if you need to. And I know that Dionne wants to cover stuff so that we can actually be active members of the community who are educated and can prevent this. So anyone, you can raise your digital hand, or I can just go with my gut and call on folks.
And they may have, and I could, I can't feel what's in your body, Shawnee, but they may have breathed through it. Because I said, for you, I acknowledged before we talked how it was feeling in my body, that I feel like I'm talking to family. It's very generic when I'm in a corporate environment and I show up and go through the words and separate my personal story and my personal connection. So I had to breathe through a lot this morning to be present with each of you today.
Absolutely. Teresa raised her hand, and I believe there's somebody else, but it's your personal choice. It's always about consent in this space. So,
Ashe.
yeah. Teresa, if you can unmute.
Yeah, I'm just glad that I'm here. I remember attempting a couple of times when I was a teenager, taking pills, and just the fact I was seeing that I didn't really feel anything at first when you started talking about it, but I'm just grateful to be here. And I'm glad that I lived, past that time and that I want to live. There was a time when I didn't really want to live. And I want to live so much that it's such a new way of living for me to want to live and to experience things that I never thought about doing. And so it just feels good to be in this place. I'm not crying because I'm sad. I'm having tears because I'm grateful for where I'm at. And I'm
grateful for you.
Years old. I'm 63 years old, and I've lived, through some things, even recently that could have made me want to give up. And I was like, nah, I got to live, So, and so I'm just so appreciative that I'm still here, and and that is such a great feeling to know that I want to live, and I came a long way, and I'm complete.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing that. And that's not something that everybody may have known before, but knowing that, I think it's important when people share that so they see, we have a visual picture of life on the other side. So thank you for sharing that in the chat, Z, and thank you for sharing that verbally, Teresa, so people know, so each of us personally know someone with lived experience that is thankful to being here and found ways to support themselves and move on with life. And someone did type in the chat earlier about pets being a really supportive part of that. But the last thing I said before I move on, because I notice I've got a few minutes before I check in with everyone that might need to leave for work. So once you have trusted your gut, and got to the point where you're the only person you think is going to reach out, I want to talk a few minutes about how to reach out, because when you want to talk to someone, and somebody in the chat did acknowledge that some people avoid conversations. So you want to talk to them in private. You want to listen to their story, express caring and concern. And this is a big one, because most people think this one is not true, but ask directly about suicidal thoughts. Are you thinking of ending your life? You said that you're feeling like a burden to your family. A lot of times that people, when they say like life is overwhelming or they feel like a burden and there's no reason to live, I've learned that people, when they say those things, they're contemplating ending their life. Are you having thoughts like that? It is a myth that you asking someone directly about ending their life is planting the seed in their mind. When you're having an open, honest conversation and you can encourage them to seek mental health services, and they actually feel seen and heard, because most people are living in their lives and living in their body, but we're not always clear about how we show up. So asking directly is the way to do it. If you ask someone if they're thinking about harming themselves, but they're actually thinking about ending their life, they're going to tell you no, because they're not thinking about hurting themselves. They're actually thinking about ending their life, dying by suicide, or ending the pain that they're dealing with. They want to end it. So it's not harm. When you're speaking to someone, I had a tendency to do this, so I can't, you may be the same. Avoid minimizing their feelings, avoid trying to convince them that life is worth living, and avoid advice to fix it. You really want to be an active listener. So a common thing, especially when we think of, Teresa said both Teresa and Z said they were young. Those of you that know my story, and my daughter was 15. Someone is in a relationship, the relationship ends. We tend to say, oh, you'll fall in love again. Oh, there'll be someone else. And that minimizes the person's feelings. Instead of being present with how they're feeling, there's a dismissive, if there's an energy. So we don't want to dismiss their emotions and what that person is going through. And most importantly, if you think that someone might be planning to make an attempt soon, stay with them, help them secure or remove access to lethal means in their home, and possibly escort them to mental health services. And I believe there's one slide that has phone numbers on it, the Suicide Prevention Lifeline and the Crisis Text Line. So there are two different things, and they have websites that are associated with them, but you can always call 1-800-273-TALK, the crisis text line, when you can text the word talk or help to 741-741. And I am going.
There's no slide with telephone numbers.
Oh, I didn't put that one in there. That's a Dionne fail. I'm going to type that in the chat for you. And as much as I do not, here we go. So I'm typing it in. 1-800-273-TALK is the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. 1-800-273-TALK, and the TALK stands for 8255. I actually know that by heart because I do have it saved in my phone. National Suicide Prevention Hotline. And then the crisis text line, you can text a word like help or concern to 741-741. Now, clearly I don't know. Oh, I did a direct message. Somebody must have messaged me earlier, so it didn't go to everybody. So it's almost, there we go. So 1-800-273-TALK is the National Suicide Prevention. There we go. So the first one is calling. The second one is texting, 741-741, crisis text line, 1-800-273-TALK, or 1-800-273-8255, National Suicide Prevention Hotline. The really important thing to note about that is that it is not only for people that are considering ending their life, it is actually for people to support others. So if I'm concerned about someone else, I can call or text to get resources. And because it's national, it could be, I'm concerned about my cousin in Georgia, or I'm concerned about my cousin in St. Thomas, because there is national services. And I don't know what services are available for the person in Texas or New Jersey, because I live in Manhattan, and that number can provide services and give access to them. And in as much as I do feel there are challenges with calling, 911 for emergencies, but if you're aware, if someone calls you and they tell you that they're about to do something and it's an active suicide in progress, it still would be best to call emergency services. What's really important to state, and I end here, is that we can create a culture that's smart about suicide prevention and mental health advocacy, us taking care of our mental health. So we are in the process of actively modeling that in our community. So it is 7:56 by my clock. And I know some of the beautiful people in this community do need to leave and go on with the rest of their day. So I want to acknowledge you and thank you for being here and hope that you did learn something. There was one more poll question in regards to what happens, or what was the last question? I think my last question was about the myth. It was something I said earlier. Yes, there we go. So hopefully you can participate in that. And I'll again state my acknowledgement for those of you that have been here and need to start your day. So please, 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 I believe my contact information did go up. And there was also a way for you to share and contribute for this. Something, so much of the WU community is volunteer, but there's always a way for you to contribute and keep money moving in our community. So there should be a true or false question that is up on your screen that you can participate in. And for those of you, oh, you're so welcome, Cecile and Teresa.
And Cecile, or Cecily, I'm not sure, Cecile,
Cecily.
maybe, I'm not sure how she pronounces her name. She did share in the chat earlier that a friend in her community attempted suicide and survived. So she might want to come off mute and share. The poll is 13 out of 21, which is pretty
That's
much
pretty
where
good.
we stuck before. And I'm going to end it and share results.
Awesome. Yes. So it is a myth for it is actually the answer. Asking a person about if they are thinking about ending their life will plant the seed is false. So that is a myth. It is not true. It is false. Asking someone directly is what you should do. I did hear another voice, Kinyofu. Was that Cecile?
Cecile, yes, I just want to share
Okay.
my experience. I'm super grateful that you're talking about this topic this morning, because I got very emotional when you started talking about it, because I have a very young, beautiful, it's the daughter of a friend, very long time friend, and she, like, this is very recent. About 2 weeks ago, I got a call that she was at the hospital. We were not sure if she was going to make it. She was at Kings County, and so my first reaction to this discussion this morning is that I'm so grateful she's still here. A very young lady in her 20s. So what I did is have a conversation with her after she came out of the hospital, and I said, "Can you go in private? I really need to have a conversation with you." And then she started talking about her story. So basically, her story is that she said that she was tired of life because something happened with her boyfriend, and the boyfriend physically hit her, and she lost some of her tooth, her front tooth. And then there was an issue also with her mom not really caring about her. And of course, I said, okay, I really hear everything you're saying, but please stay with us. Like, I love you and I want you to be with us, like around us. Like, you don't have to take your life, if certain people don't show you appreciation or love. So I'm just super emotional right now, and I'm just listening to you to hear how I can help her better, because she's on high medication. They gave her Prozac, they gave her all type of stuff. So I'm gonna try with the best of my abilities to help her. Yes.
So the two things, so is it Cecile or Cecily?
Cecile.
Cecile, thank you so much. And
You're
I'm
welcome.
definitely thankful that she had you to speak to. And I did put a couple of things in the chat So I'm not sure. You said Kings County, so that I know that's Brooklyn. So I typed two things in, and one is afsp.org get help, and it's an active link in the chat. And when you click on that active link, it will show you the same numbers I talked about. Let's see. Can I ask you, Kenyofo, if you click on that to show that screen instead of me sharing my screen? Because if you click AFS,
Yes,
if you,
let me try. Let me try
What
to
am I
see.
clicking on?
afsp.org get help, because that way everybody will see what that looks like. Because one of the challenges when I provide support for people and I give them I make sure I give them the link.
Oh, okay.
Hang on.
Trying to see if I can.
There we
I'm
go.
not. Okay.
Just so you can see what it looks like, everyone here. When it's afsp.org get help, scroll back up again, pretty please. There. So you see, if it says if you're in crisis, right at top, there's the new number I gave you, 1-800-273-8255, which is 1-800-273-TALK. And you can text the word talk to 741-741. And then when you scroll down a little bit, it has those 4 circles of people. I'm having thoughts of suicide, and you can click on something. I've lost someone to suicide, and there's help for that. If you're concerned about someone, there's help for that. And then if you've survived an attempt, so the young lady herself, if she wanted to learn more about it. And when you scroll down a little bit more, those are some of the resources that are available. Suicide prevention resources, LGBTQ crisis and support resources, mental health resources for underrepresented communities, mental health resources. So there's a great deal of information there. But when someone is in crisis, thank you for that, Kenyofu, you can bring it down. What I dare say is I would never say, I'm just using Kenyofu as example. I won't say, Kenyofu, go to afsp.org, because that's not helpful. What's helpful is holding someone's hand and showing the site to them or sending them something specific. So I generally tell everybody to program 1-800-273-TALK in their phone, because in the past 10 years or so, the most often when people reach out to me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, email, text message, direct message, it is, what's that number I'm supposed to call? Where am I supposed to get help? You know, my cousin is in Atlanta and I don't know how to support them. Somebody in Philadelphia, because that's a national number. And through advocacy, that number should eventually change to 988. There's an advocacy that's happening and trying to fund that number, because once it switches, then that's, they'll need more funding, because when it moves from 1-800-273-8255 to a 3-digit number, more people may call. So there will have to be better staffing and training and more people for that. So there's a funding thing that we're working on with advocacy. So before I move on, what I do want to share, and someone did ask me in the chat to mention this. So for any of you that do not know my story, I became passionate about suicide prevention because I lost my daughter at 15 years of age to suicide 10 years ago. Her first attempt at suicide was in 2009, and that's when I started volunteering with AFSP. She ultimately died by suicide in 2011 at 15 years of age. And I do see a couple of things coming up in the chat that I haven't read completely, but because Cecile brought up the fact that the young friend was dealing with physical abuse, my daughter unfortunately had endured sexual violence twice. And the first person escaped justice, the second person went to jail. And it was the reconciling of that and having these conversations and talking. And as we all know, or most of us I think are aware, with the Me Too movement, so many victims of sexual violence take it on themselves as having shame in regards to it and making themselves wrong as opposed to aiming outward. So there are various things. So I will pause. That's why I got involved, and there are so many different challenges. And I will even share another link because there's one particular video link that I like, and I met this gentleman before when he talks about what his challenges were as a person that has survived suicide attempts, and he also volunteers with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, and really thankful that he's on the other side of it. I had thought about sharing it with you, but it's almost a 5-minute clip, and I felt as though it's something that if you're choosing to look at it, you can at another time. And letting you know that if you want to volunteer, I'll pop the chat in, and all of you have my information. I definitely respond to text messages and emails in regards to this often, and there are ways to volunteer. Let me see, I want to put up the New York City chapter, and because I'm in New York, but it's really important when you're going to the website, and I'm going to go to the first screen and put that in there. So if you're in another state, I know many of us are logging in from a different place, here we go, that you can find a chapter that's near you. So I definitely have people that are participating in Puerto Rico, a girlfriend that retired from New York, in Hawaii, that you can find a chapter in your respective state. There are chapters in all 50 states, and there are conferences that happen annually, and there are different ways to volunteer. There are walks coming up, because my volunteering started with a walk. While my daughter was alive, we together as a family went on a walk, and I'm mentioning it now because I'm thinking of Cecile's friend, I think you said she's 20 something, she's young. It was really eye-opening for her to see other people. And we generally have something called a bead ceremony. So the dates, let's see, I'm gonna double check the dates in my head since we just had a board meeting. October 16th is in Brooklyn. And then October 24th is in Manhattan. And then the other dates that are happening for walks are in November, but they'll be virtual. So last year, we didn't do any walks in Manhattan for safety. Everything was online and virtual. And thank you for that, Kinyofu. When you go to that website, there's an event site for New York City for those of us that are in New York City. So you can see what the walks are for events, but it's a lot to go through the site. I want to pause now, and whether it's Facebook or Zoom, ask any question. If I don't have the answer, I will try to find the answer for you.
All right, I'm going back to a comment I saw from Sweetness. I didn't fully read it through, but looked like it needed attention.
Okay.
Attention. Does
Sweetness want to speak? Does she want to speak to what?
Sweetness?
No, I don't want to speak, but you can read it.
Okay.
All right, I'll read it. We have an understanding of family, and we have an understanding of death. I find it would be helpful if we had an open conversation about where we get those views from. It might help us relate in a different way to our life events, issues, and situations.
I love that, Sweetness. And I think I might not have had that conversation with you, but I know I've had that conversation often with others, that one of the challenges, if you are born and raised in the United States of America, that I don't feel there's a cultural place for habits and rituals and rites around death. And that's something, if you have different cultural context in place, is helpful. You know, the example that I use quite often is you cannot walk in an Asian or Indian restaurant and not see an altar somewhere. It might be up on a little shelf, it might be over to the side, but very publicly in their place of business, there's a place where they're acknowledging spirit. And therefore, in acknowledging spirit, I would dare say acknowledging death and acknowledging ancestors. And it's not something that is as open, or we don't have a cultural context from the cultural context that I feel I was brought up with is you don't discuss it and you have a short period of time to get over it. Somebody died, you know, you get about a month, and then it's like, you're still grieving, you're still on that. So, and death is not linear, and your feelings around death and grieving are not linear. It does take time and space in your life. So it's something that I think we have to create for ourselves in looking at what that cultural context is and what your altar is. What I did bring that I have next to me is a little portable altar that I have of things from my daughter that I generally travel with. And having that, it is truly beat up. I'm going to show it to you because it's in this little portable thing and you can see the ink on it, and it's just a satin wrap that things have leaked on. And in there are different things like the prayer card from her service with the poem on the back, and a pair of earrings that were hers, and a shell, a stone that says heal. So there's different things in there. And I generally put that up as, you know, when I go somewhere and I travel, and I do keep an altar up, but because I do feel that my dead are with me and they support me. So, oh, and I definitely agree with that, Sweetness. Thank you for typing that in the chat. We say that children should not die before the parent, and that, you know, keeps us in a way of bondage. And I don't know that I feel that I'm in bondage. I do feel we're in partnership. I do feel that my daughter is my business partner. So even though I am a sole proprietor, that I do have a not so silent partner, because I do feel that my dead speak to me in ways quite often. I'm not sure how Shawnee feels about that one, or other people that have lost someone very close to them. But I feel as though the conversation from me is very present and alive. And I often have to remind myself, it's like, oh, they're not here. They're not here physically, because I hear and feel messages so often.
Yeah, the community who's been around since the beginnings, or, you know, we speak about it periodically. You know my position on this. We wouldn't be in Wake Up Everybody if I didn't listen to my daughter. She gives me downloads. She slaps me around on a regular basis because that's just her personality when she was alive, and also as an ancestor, a busybody, and making sure that I'm doing what it is that I've given my word to. So Wake Up is a product of me listening to my daughter, who is an ancestor, for those who haven't heard that story before. So I never thought about her as my business partner, but when she was alive, we constantly would go back and forth about our businesses. So she definitely is that. So thank you, Dionne, for putting that in my vocabulary too.
Yeah, yeah. And I got it from a coach that I was working with a while. And it was like literally her listening to her spirit and her download. This woman on Zoom looked at me and said, I don't know if it's okay for me to say this to you, but I think you have a business partner. So someone gifted that to me. And she was like, I can just see, I've never seen her. She didn't know my story. And she was like, she is cheering for you and she is rooting for you. And I was like, oh yeah, that's definitely her. So yeah. So were there, and I wasn't sure, there were comments earlier from Facebook. So I'm not sure if there's anything that wants to come, anyone, or there's a sharing from Facebook before I move on.
Right, this is not from Facebook, this is from Zoom.
Okay.
And it's it has some meat in it. So this is from Jacqueline. She says, so many teens and young women are in domestic violence situations with a partner. I hid my situation from my family when I was young. I considered suicide several times. It wasn't until I walked away from the situation that I was able to see the light. As a result of my own history, I took my children's relationships very seriously, and I watched closely. Being secretive and being isolated from family and friends by the abuser is a red flag for both suicide and domestic abuse.
That's a big one. And it's not something I, have talked about often, but I did have a situation many moons ago in terms of domestic violence. And that was one of the first walks I did before suicide prevention walks. So there is a national domestic violence hotline. I would have to Google that one. I don't know that number by heart. And sometimes if you're in New York, 311 is helpful for some of that. And I know National Domestic Violence Hotline. There we go. There's a get help for them as well. And they said that their number is 24/7. And there's a security alert. Okay. All right, so I'm typing that here, copy. So if you know someone that's dealing with domestic violence, there we go. So that number is the domestic violence hotline. I literally just Googled it. And it says the number, the actual number is 1-800-799-SAFE. And the website is thehotline.org. So the hotline, and you can also call, chat online, and text. So because I have not used this one, I will dare say that there is, I'm not sure if they connect you with resources for other states and other people, or if it's, I don't know if that site is for the, if you're concerned about someone to get support for them, but I would say definitely try it if you're concerned about someone. And I'm glad I just looked it up with you, because I had a conversation with a dear friend of mine recently in regards to her daughter and concerns about a relationship that, you know, that she is in that is abusive.
You asked about Facebook, and so we have Jem McBean with a question. She's like, she's asking you, have you ever sensed from your daughter that she regretted what she did?
I actually have not. Thank you for asking that, Jem. And I have not sensed that. What I got from other people that dreamt her, they felt a sense of freedom. And I never got the term happy or sad or regret, and just that. And that was the scariest thing I remember receiving, literally scary. You know how there's these spam weird emails, and after my daughter died, I remember getting an email from her and the subject line said, I'm free. And then when you went into the body of the email, it was somebody trying to sell something, and because she was deceased, her account had been hacked. And that was, I was just like, okay, that was weird. And then I forewarned my family that her account had been hacked. So if they receive an email, you know, and then just to block it. But in any event, I have not. And since someone, what did Sweetness say? There are a few things I can't see. There are a few things coming up in the chat. So Jem, that's my answer. I have not. And I do know, and my understanding of her past lives, she's not someone that has died of natural causes. She's died of, you know, sickness and whatnot in her past lives. So that has not been her journey as of yet. But I would dare, so I don't know that to be true in my experience. Go ahead, Kenyofu, I heard you say something.
Yep, Sweetness, her comment you alluded to. I find talking about the past abuse with safe people helps me to get a better understanding of how it could and does continue to show up in a negative ways in my present life.
Oh, and Jacqueline, I just see it says that the scary thing is her daughter and her friends see it as a choice to be free. Are we, Jacqueline, are you talking about, I don't know if you want to come off mute, if you're saying that they're considering suicide?
They talk about it like it's an option.
Wow.
And I was very surprised about that, because I was having a conversation with my daughter and her friends, and I can't stop my video right now.
It's okay. It's okay.
And you know, they were saying that it's not that big of a deal, that it's an option, and some people just don't want to be here. And I was just amazed that they were so flip about it, like it was not that big of a deal. Like, this is something they would actually consider. And I asked her directly, I said, well, have you ever considered it? She's like, no, but I don't feel that people should get on people because they think about it, because it is something, you know, sometimes people are in so much pain and they want to end it. And who are we to tell them how they should live? And I was like, I'm still trying to figure out how to broach the subject with her again, even though I'm seeing her improve in her mental health area. She just bought a pet, thank God. And I see, she's very nurturing and stuff like that. Because I sent my dog to her last year when she was really in a very bad space. So I'm always concerned about that. My brother didn't actually, well, I don't know if he committed suicide. He was taking some drugs and went out drinking and took some more drugs. So I suspect that he knew what he was doing.
Well, I'm not sure if, again, unless they leave a note, you're not 100% sure, but that's something I generally talk about within our communities, that substance use issues are a slow death by suicide, whether it's conscious or not, and the self-medicating. So people that are drinking or using drugs in certain way, instead of getting medication prescribed, they are in fact self-medicating to deal with, their respective challenges. And I
Yes,
definitely saw that a lot in my family.
He did that ahead of the actual event that happened. He did that. He was sniffing glue, and he was doing stuff like that. And I would find his stuff and throw it out because I was close to him. But and then he would get very angry. So he had like bipolar disorder or something. And so when his psychiatrist gave him amphetamines or whatever it is she gave him, he mixed that with other drugs one night. And he knew how to take his medication because he had been taking it for over a year.
Yeah,
But he went out, and he just finished it, and that was
Yeah.
that. So I I'm very aware of these things and been affected by them. So I got that, and I'm complete.
All right. Thank you for that, Jacqueline. So we are close to time. Teresa, I know you had spoken earlier and I see your hand up. I don't want to ignore that. Is your hand up from before, or was there something else you wanted to say briefly? Oh, wait, I see Joy. Go ahead, Teresa.
I just wanted to say that the church is so negative about, they be saying that suicide is a sin and all these different things. And I just feel like the church does not deal with, people who's dealing with suicide. They just say, oh, it's a sin against God. So it's like, like when people are dealing with it.
I will interject. I don't know if that may be your church specifically, but
I'm saying to the church that I've grown up in.
Got it.
Let me, excuse me. Thank you for checking me. I feel the church that I've grown in and some other church that I've been around, like they see it as a sin. And so they don't offer a person who might be struggling, because there was times when I was struggling during that time when I was in church, but because, it was like, it wasn't a safe place for me to be able to say, I'm dealing with this, and, not being able to say it, it was such a, it was made to feel bad if you were thinking about this. So, that's what I was just saying, is that I wish that, and like when she was talking about the ancestors, it's like all that stuff that people say, like, and dealing with some of the churches, is that it's voodoo and all this kind of stuff. So it's like,
I'm going to interject, Teresa, because I do know that, and I know Joy wants to, but don't go away, Teresa. What I want to acknowledge is, yes, that was how it was, and there may be some churches that exist in that way, but I have done the same sort of presentation with PowerPoint slides up in many Black churches in our respective communities. And I do know pastors that are active about it. And I do know the Catholic Church has changed their position because it's mental health advocacy. And that was definitely what it used to be. I worked for a yoga teacher who lost her brother to suicide. And she said she then ultimately lost her mother because her mother became an alcoholic, and she, being the oldest child, wound up taking care of her siblings. So she would, when she shared it with me, and they never discussed it, and they didn't tell anyone at that point in time. And gosh, since my daughter died 10 years ago when I worked with her, so we're going back 40 or 45 years ago when this happened. And so while things have changed, even if laws have changed, and even from the Pope down, if the ritual has changed, it sometimes takes a while to trickle down to respective places. So I will acknowledge in the chat, and what you're saying is that's what it was. And what we are preaching, and I know various pastors, I attended another conference with, there's another organization around suicidology where it was all the pastors create a conference that they do every 2 years to make sure people know, if you break a leg, you pray on your healing and you go to the doctor. So in the same way, your brain is a part of your body. So you can pray for healing, but actively engage in something else as well. So thank you for bringing religion as a challenge into this as well. And it's something we continue to overcome. So I really do appreciate that, Teresa. And before, we're just about time. If you can bear with me, I see one more hand and I would love to hear Joy. So if you give me 5, maybe 10 more minutes, then we will be complete here. Thank you for staying with us. Joy, did you want to say something?
Yeah. Yes, hello, greetings. And I apologize for not having my camera on. I just want to thank Sister for sending me this link. And it just was like sort of, immediate. And I said, let me just tune in. I really wasn't prepared. I would like to, my name is Nayo Joy. And I also want to give some acknowledgement to Shawnee Benson. We know each other. You probably know me when you see me. I just wanted to say that one of my best friend's daughter had committed suicide at 12 years old. She was being teased in school, and she was found hanging from the door at home. And it was just, she had notes and everything at school. And it was just, what a time. So I was just, when I kind of plugged into this, I really thought about, my friend, and I would love to, get further information, to see perhaps if, she would like to, work or collaborate or just be in contact, because I'm sure there's a lot that can be shared. And I know she did start at some time, my friend, being an advocate, but sometimes that is very therapeutic in terms of, helping others and things like that. So I just wanted to, kind of say that. And so I appreciate and applaud the work that you're doing.
Thank you, Joy. Is your friend in New York?
Yeah, she is. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
She's in
So
Brooklyn.
I popped a link in the chat just now for the New York City chapter. I realized I popped it in the chat before asking you if they were in New York. And I know you joined. So one of the things we talked about and the way we talk about suicide is saying that we would say that people died by suicide versus committed suicide, because committed implies judgment, but that was the most common terminology. And that also historically comes from the fact that it was illegal, in the same way that Sister Teresa brought up the fact that, how it was a sin in the church. So the language has not changed everywhere. And even when we work with journalists, we've been working on changing that language to saying died by suicide, ended their life, killed themselves, because in the same way, if you have cancer, you don't commit cancer, or you don't commit cardiac arrest. You would commit a homicide, and because it was a crime, it was a commitment. Like you did this. But
yes, thank you for the language is so important. So thank you for that. Yeah. And I'm also a survivor. I had my own suicide planned out, but I was, suffering from depression, anxiety, and I was able to overcome. And I have a story myself. And so thank you for this important topic. And thank everyone for this. And I am also working on helping others through this, being from that experience and my own experience, giving tips and things that can help people. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Joy. And definitely very sorry for your girlfriend losing her daughter at 12. The statistics start at the age of 5. And in my presentation, I did talk about childhood abuse being a part of it, because when I saw that the CDC was collecting numbers and the youngest age is 5, and then it goes to over 65, and it being the 10th leading cause of death in the United States is what I shared. But amongst young people, it is actually the 2nd leading cause of death, suicide. So I feel it's really important that we are comfortable having this conversation. Yes, Kenyofu, the youngest age with the CDC of children, of people that die by suicide in the United States, they collect data at 5. Oh, I think I see Jean-Carl has a hand up.
Yes, I do. I just thought I would share my my experience around teenager. I think somewhere between like 13, 15, I had expressed wanted to commit suicide at that age. And my challenge was I was frustrated with my life, not being misunderstood by my family, and no one understood, having these hearing challenges. I was perceived as being difficult for whatever reasons, just being misunderstood. And there was an experience where I remember I was in Barbados, in the gullies and hills of my country, where I live, in the country area. And I remember my uncle trying to, I told my, and this is a little difficult because I never really talked about this before, but I remember telling my family that, you know what, I'm just going to kill myself. I don't like this experience. And I was walking towards the beach and I passed my uncle, who I don't think he knew, but he tried to stop me and like, hey, where you going? And, you know, just come on back home with me or whatever. And I fought him and went past, but I got to the beach and I just walked. I just walked on the sand, which relieved my mind. But I don't think I really wanted to commit suicide. I was just frustrated with not being understood. And in the past couple of years, I've been a supporter and a comforter for a family member in the early 20s, young teenage, 19 towards 20s, who expressed to me that they felt suicidal. And, you know, I understand it's something that we go through as teenagers, having these difficulties with life. And it's just, sometimes you just need that comforting ear, someone to talk to, someone who understands what you're going through. That's what it was for me. And that's what it was for the person that I comforted. Just knowing that, hey, you're not crazy. We go through these things. They're just challenges that we deal with coming into this life with challenges. I've been, I was going back and forth with, should I raise my hand? Should I raise my hand? Should I share this or not? But, you know, like you said, it's about creating a comfort with it and letting people know it's okay. So even for myself, like I said, that was when I was younger. And sometimes even as an adult, the concept comes back to my mind, not saying I'm going to do this, but it still lingers so much in the air. It's still there, the thoughts. And, you know, you can't believe everything we think, and we have to balance these thoughts. So, you know.
I am so thankful, Jean-Carl. I want to interject because you mentioned a few different things. And there is a part of the training, and I popped in the chat. There's a training called Mental Health First Aid Training. And that's a different certification that I got that you do every 3 years, and it's different ages. And that's the one that most teachers participate in. And to your point, being in a different country, and again, how we always hail in terms of the island way of being and things you don't talk about and things, there's a stigma and things you don't share. So thank you for being an adult and sharing that experience from before. And what people say, there was a statistic, and I don't want to misquote it, but it was somewhere between 20 or 25%. So 1 in 5 or 1 in 4 people have thoughts of suicide. So the reality is, like, it's more normal, the thought, it's having a plan and then going to act on it. So when and if you say this to someone, and I do know what your experience, my oldest son did that at one point at school. He said, I want to die. And I was like, what do you mean when you say you want to die? And it was like, they give too much homework. We don't have enough recess. I don't like what they do in school, and da, da, da. It's like, okay, so we have to find different language around your frustration. And so that was it. We like, I'm really frustrated with this and I don't like this, and said, let's find the right words for how you're feeling. Go ahead.
One other thing, as an adult now, like I said, being born with sickle cells, supposed to be dead at 16 and 25, 35, and I'm 50. I'd made peace with death, and I'm not afraid to die, which is another thing. If I was to die, and it doesn't bother me. I just think it's like, you're born, you die. It's part of this human existence. But spirit doesn't die. And I'm very, very comfortable with that. I'm not afraid. Actually, I want a party when I go. I don't want that sad feeling. You know, it's okay to feel the tears and everything, but I want a party when I leave and a party when I arrive.
Ashe, thank you for that. And that's what I've told my children. And my son rolls his eyes now. He's like, I know, Mom, I know. And I was like, do I need to give you a playlist? Do you know what you need to know what you're partying to and what we're doing? But I want everybody, thank you for that, Jean-Carl. I want everybody to just take a deep breath. And take another deep breath. We are engaging in a conversation that can save lives. I ultimately dream a world without suicide, dream a world that all of us have desires to live and ways of coping with whatever mental health challenges and life experience that we have, and get trained to feel comfortable and talking to people and feel comfortable engaging in this conversation, because it's up to us to create a culture where it's safe for humans of all ages to talk about how they're feeling and get the support they need so they live. So I want to apologize actively with you and send you all and surround you in the biggest hug possible for any feelings of discomfort that were triggered, and offer you and remind you to take major ways in self-care today. Whatever part of this hurt your heart, know that having this conversation and having this awareness about it is also the way to healing your heart. This is a conversation that I personally had with Shawnee, and sometimes the way to healing is through the pain and through the shadow. So bringing up this level of darkness that is challenging for us, and bringing in statistics that you may or may not have been aware of that are heartbreaking. I absolutely get finding out that people so young of an age, because I didn't know what death was at that age. So to know that people have found ways and figured out how to end their life at such young ages was quite jarring. So I get how jarring that is for you. Take good care of your heart. I do want to move on to what is coming up for you and really respect and honor your time. But before I transition out and we close out for today, I just want to make sure there's space if there's a need for someone else to share, or if there's anything that I've missed on Facebook to come through before we close out, and I let you know what's coming, what I have to offer. Okay. Thank you, Cecile. So I do think that we've cleared everything in the air that came up for today, and there's so much more available. I'm hoping they'll put my contact information in the chat, and I'm ready to go through the slides and let you know what my offer is. Thank you so much. So you may have heard, I know people joined at different times. I am a coach, and I'm a dance teacher and a yoga teacher. But as a coach, I offer complimentary breakthrough sessions or strategy sessions with people. And it's really been a pleasure over the past 8 or 10 months or so in working with the WOO community to offer them. And because this is such a special month, September being Suicide Prevention Awareness Month, I normally only offer 4 sessions when I do this, but I've doubled it and I'm offering 8. So there's a link that is here and you can copy and paste it. And I think it's been placed in the chat for you. But as you click on it, once you click on it, you can pick a time and schedule with me, and then it will send me an email and I will know that you scheduled. So it is a complimentary session for the first 8 people. Please note, you can select whether it's a phone call or a Zoom session, and I will send you a follow-up generally the day before to confirm, and I will ask you to share what it is that you want to discuss so we can move forward. And that's for the first 8 people. And that's because this community is family. And then here's all of my contact information. So please feel free to take a picture of that slide. That's my phone number. I'm much better by text. My Facebook page, Instagram, email, as well as the website. I put up the link tree because it has access to signing up for this talk or different things where I've been in media, and my actual website is there, but all of that information is available on the link tree. So please do take a picture of this slide. And your love offerings and donations. We often give from our heart, but there are various things when we're looking at, my own natural energy yield, money. You can make a donation or a love offering through Zelle, QuickPay, Cash App. And if you put in the code #421DM for Dionne Monsanto, then we'll know that it was for the learning and the offering that you did today. So it is for the first 8 participants will receive the complimentary breakthrough session. And let's see. And tomorrow morning, if you join us on Monday, September 27th, Your Divine Sweet Tooth and How to Love It is going to be facilitated by Niamu Muid. And then on Tuesday morning, it will be In the Kitchen with a Black Rican Vegan, which is awesome. And that is being facilitated by Liana Blount. So I'm hoping you're able to, if you've registered already for this week, and participate in one of those sessions. Thank you so much for being here and so actively participating with me today on Facebook and Zoom.
All right, so I saw some new names in our Zoom, and I'm asking if you are new, welcome. Actually, I'm saying to you, if you're new, welcome to Wake Up Everybody. And please drop it in the chat that you are new so that you can receive your welcome from the community that's there waiting to welcome you. And again, and also if you're new, please come back. We definitely hope that you got a lot from this session, and I'm here to say that there's lots of other sessions for you to get a lot from. This is Woo. We've been around for quite a while now. What day are we? 421 days, and we are still kicking. So keep coming back. We're here 5 days a week. 3 days are our long days from 7 to 8:30. That's Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday. And 2 days are our short days from 7 to 7:30, and that's Monday and Wednesday. Zoom and Facebook Live. You can receive text alerts to your phone every morning to remind you that we're here. And in order to do that, you have to set it up. So you want to go into your text right now and type in 74121. And then in the comment section, you would type in Woo Nation and just press send, and you'll be in the automated text list system. We have swag, so you can walk around the streets in your sweatshirt or your t-shirt and your mask, and you can also be in your office or library or wherever you hang out with your mug and your thermos and representing Woo. The way to get this is to go to the link bit.ly/Woo swag. Get your swag and register. So you register every week to get the link in your email, as well as who's coming up for the week and what they're speaking about and who exactly they are. There's more information that might show up in those emails. You do want to get those emails. And if someone gave you the Zoom link, you want to go to this link, bit.ly/wake up movement, sign up, get on our email list. Facebook, I mentioned we are live on Facebook. We are live in the Facebook page because Zoom and Facebook created it that way. We'd rather be live in the Facebook group, but we're dealing with what we have. And so when you go to the page, which is a public page, you can see the communications, the comments that's being made. We share it into the group, so you can see the actual playback, no comments. But in order to get into the group with the 1,000+ people that are members, you would need to register. Basically, you go to bit.ly/Woo community and then agree to some rules and then be accepted into the community. And there you go. You will also, in that community, you will see any messages that the facilitators from present and future and past presentations have created, as well as any communications from the members themselves. We're on Instagram and YouTube, and we're also on, we also have an email for you to communicate with us if you like. So it's info.wakeupseries@gmail.com. At this point, we're going to move into a love shower, and I'm going to stop the screen share and ask everybody to unmute themselves so that we can thank Dionne for this wonderful session.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Sister
Thank you,
Dionne,
Thank you
aka
so much.
Abner.
This is
Thank you.
Thank
This was a
you. Have a
beautiful,
blessed day.
needed
A blessed week.
conversation.
Thank you so much.
Peace
Thank
and
you,
love.
thank you, thank you. And you've reinforced to me as well.
Love you,
If I
beloved. Thank
hear
you.
anybody to just tune in
Love
and do
this
my best to
family.
assist them. Thank you so much. Love you,
We-
everyone. Have a great day.
Yeah, very, very important conversation and essential. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. We shall live and not die. We shall live.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
We shall live. We shall live. We shall live.
Yes, we will, Teresa.
Yes, ma'am.
Shall live and not die. We shall live and not die. We shall live. We shall live. We shall live. I love you.
Thank you, thank you.
Ashe.
Thank you all for being here, for staying to the end, just always being such an awesome, welcoming community.
Yeah.